All right, welcome in alongside Ashley, Nicole Moss, and Bill Reiter. I'm John Gonzalez. Gang, we have so much to discuss today. Later in the show,
Crazy day.
we're going to revisit, I don't know, maybe Bill was right about the Wolves. The Pacers still haven't won with Siakam. The Rivals Week got going. There's some fun topics in our fast break segment. Plus, KD thinks he's the GOAT, LOL. But first, the Bucks fired Adrian Griffin. I'm blown away by this. They're 30-13. They're 3.5 games out of first place. Gang, only one team, the Boston Celtics, in the entire NBA has a better record. This is some Premier League stuff.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
I mean, I was just going to say it is shocking, but not surprising, I think is where it comes. I mean, it was an open secret around the NBA that Adrian Griffin was on shaky ground in Milwaukee. But the fact that he's out when they're 30-13, not after some bad, run of play where they've lost a bunch of games in a row, and that Doc Rivers, who at least reportedly was an advisor to Griffin to try and help him as a rookie head coach succeed, decided the best advice to give was to fire Adrian Griffin. Now the Bucks push back on this and hire him is peak Doc Rivers. And Ash, I don't know where you come down on this. For me, look, there's two sort of worlds on this. For me, it's an utter disaster. I think Doc Rivers is a disaster of a head coach that is certainly shared by not everybody, but plenty of people around the NBA. The stats speak for themselves. Let me just rattle through them because I think it's amazing they hired this guy. There have been 13 teams that have been up 3-1 in an NBA 7-game playoff series and still lost. And 3 of them have been coached by Doc Rivers. He is 6-10 in game sevens. He is 17-33 in closeout games for his team. And if you're going to fire a guy, guys, in Adrian Griffin, who might have had some issues, who might have had some faults, who maybe didn't have the total confidence of the veterans in that locker room, who's 30-13, you're making the argument it's because we don't think he can succeed in the postseason. And that's exactly what Buck sources have told me in the last couple hours. And to turn to a guy who has a demonstrated history of not succeeding in the postseason, John, something you know emotionally, and I think if you look at the facts we all know intellectually, actually, I don't understand it, and I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. I think for me, it was reported that Adrian Griffin, had 14 different head coaching interviews throughout the league and finally landed in Milwaukee. It's also reported via Mark Stein and a bunch of other insiders that Giannis backed this hiring. He was all for it. The Bucks consulted with Giannis when they were going through the process of looking for a new head coach after firing Coach Bud. So Giannis was behind it. At some point, was no longer a believer in Adrian Griffin, and you have to really wonder why, because the Bucks are doing better this season, this time, than they were last year. Last year, they were 30-17. This year, they're 30-13. And for a team that some will argue didn't really think there was much postseason hope, obviously this was before Damian Lillard and before some of the other moves they made. You have to wonder, okay, now you're in a better position than you were last season. How do you not go ahead and give a head coach the opportunity to prove himself where it matters most? And that's in the postseason. And much to Bill's point, you then hire a coach who, for all intensive purposes, has been a failure in the postseason. I mean, Bill ran through the numbers. 13 3-1 leads blown in the NBA. Doc Rivers has the record for 3 of them. I mean, like he said, 6-10 in game sevens. The list goes on and on that this is not a guy who can win in the postseason. And if that is what the goal is for this team, which I think it is, especially now that you have Damian Lillard, you went ahead and filled the void of losing Drew Holiday and things like that. How do you then go ahead and hire a coach who may or may not even get you that far? It's just a very confusing situation. And I think one thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way also is Doc Rivers was available. Doc Rivers wasn't, tied to a team. It's not like he was already the head coach someplace else. He was very much available. And this is the coach that you wanted, because it seems, per a bunch of reports, that the Bucks were consulting with him as far back as December. Then why let this man coach more than half the season just to go with the coach it could have got in the first place? It just makes absolutely no sense. It's a little shady. I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way.
It's a lot shady. Yeah. I mean, to have, and as Bill said, he's gotten pushback from the Bucks that they had Doc installed as this behind the scenes advisor to Adrian Griffin. But it certainly seems like this wasn't working out well for the Bucks, because there were rumors early in the season that, especially defensively, that things were not going well under Adrian Griffin. And we've seen what happens. Yes, they moved Drew Holiday off the team, but they fall right now. They have the 22nd defensive rating in the NBA after being a team that prided itself on playing defense. And there were these rumors, these rumblings all around the league that, hey, things aren't really going well with the defense that he's implemented here. And I think, like, looking back on it now, Terry Stotts resigning as an assistant
100%.
before the season even
100%.
began had to be a clue.
Oh, it was a huge clue. And looking back, right, because I know Terry a little bit and people that are close to Terry a lot, and their view on this, right, if you sort of talk to them on background, was it was just Terry was disrespected. And he's a prideful guy, impressive guy, but also they were planning this narrative that it's not going to work. It's not going to go well. And he doesn't want to be a part of it. Look, I'm going to give you the Bucks perspective. I've talked to some folks there. I am not saying that I agree with this perspective or that we need to buy into this, but here is Milwaukee's contention for whatever it's worth. Because one of the big, let's just do real talk. Doc Rivers has a reputation for being a backstabber in the NBA. That doesn't mean that it's true. It's just true that he has a reputation with some people for being that guy. And I think the easy joke, because the Athletics reporting was he was hired as an advisor to find a path forward for Adrian Griffin. And the path forward was pushing him under a bus and then taking his job. That's the joke, right? All right. So according to people in the Bucks organization, take it or leave it, because people certainly lie. Sources certainly lie. I'll just say what I've heard. They say that Doc Rivers was never an actual official advisor in any capacity. They push back on the Athletic report, and they claim there was one meeting in Las Vegas with John Horst, who's the GM, with the now fired Adrian Griffin, and with Doc Rivers a couple days in Vegas before they actually played in that in-season tournament. They also claim that Adrian Griffin lost the locker room, that there was a disconnect before that meeting. So before, in theory, Doc Rivers got involved. And they also claim that they are going to be very, very patient with Doc, and that they're going to be very active at the trade deadline.
Okay.
Those are my sources. So I'm not sure I buy it, but I'm not sure I'm supposed to say that. But I'm just, that's what they're selling.
There's pushback for me on that. I mean, for one, I don't understand. I can understand the defensive aspect or lack thereof with Griffin, right? But I don't understand how you lose a locker room sitting at number 2 in the East. You're 30-13. I can understand there being concerns perhaps about, as the season progresses, what is our defense going to look like? There are some games we lost that I can understand all that. But to go as drastic as losing a locker room, there have been coaches with losing records that still have their locker room. So for me, it's hard to really believe that a guy that Giannis wanted, a guy that Giannis was a part of bringing into the organization, he loses that locker room with a winning record. It's very hard for me to believe.
Well, I don't think they're firing him without Giannis's permission here. Just like
I don't disagree with that either. But I also find it very hard to believe. I also find it very hard to believe that Doc Rivers just came out of left field and there was no conversations behind closed doors. This was the one and done situation. We had a meeting with, that doesn't make any sense, because also we're going to go ahead and call a spade a spade. Some of the other names that were thrown into the mix were Nate McMillan, Jeff Van Gundy. There are other coaches from both an offensive and a defensive right. There's other coaches from both sides of the ball, both sides of the game, offensively and defensively, that I believe would have been a better fit for this team that wants to go ahead and get better defensively, but also needs to stay top 5, top 10 offensively, especially as we go down the stretch in the season.
I think you're missing this here. I think it's an awesome hire for the rest of the Eastern Conference. Okay, I think it's really fantastic. And I wish the Bucks nothing but the best. I mean, we were talking about, the kind of success or lack thereof that the Doc has had in his career. 24 seasons as a head coach. He's reached the conference finals twice. Couldn't get out of the second round with the Clippers. Couldn't get out of the second round with the Sixers. He has one title. That's as many as Rick Carlisle in 22 seasons. I like Rick Carlisle a lot. I mean, I think I'd rather have Rick Carlisle
and John,
than Doc Rivers.
You're missing. You don't forget to add the meat here. Look at the teams he's had. He had the Lob City
Yes.
Clippers. He had Joel Embiid, prime Ben Simmons, and didn't go to the finals with any of them. Like
10 years of two contenders,
let's
never
talk
made a
about
cut.
this.
I think I read
Well, that
this
was
to you
my
guys
point.
yesterday.
That
Can I
was my
just read
point.
that? I just want to back John up here because this is so petty and mean, but it is. This is a text. I think I read this to you guys the other day, but I'm going to repeat it from a rival executive when the news came out that Doc was probably going to get hired, and the other Eastern Conference contenders breathe easier. That's the main takeaway for me. Look, I like the people in the Bucks organization. I'm from that part of the country, and I root for small market teams. But Ash hit on, I think, the main overarching point. You had a colossal opportunity to hire a bunch of championship level coaches. Nick Nurse, who's doing wonders for your Sixers, was available. Frank Vogel's won an NBA championship. He's available. Monty Williams, not an NBA champion, but he coached the Suns to a championship game and a championship series, and a beloved figure was available. Now maybe you weren't going to pay the money that obviously Detroit paid. There were options. So you go and you don't hire Nick Nurse. You hire his assistant and get it so wrong that you have to fire in 43 games, 43 games into the season, and then you hire Doc Rivers, who was available. It's also, I think, a disaster for that front office and that organization if this doesn't work out. And to me, to all of your points, other than John, who loves it for his Sixers, this is panic mode for Milwaukee. Two things can be true at once. Adrian Griffin could have been the wrong hire, and maybe it's bold to move on. But if you hire Doc Rivers, right, if I have a leaky ceiling and I got to fix it, the solution is not to burn my house to the ground. And it feels like that's what the Milwaukee Bucks have done.
That's what I'm trying to figure out here because they're second in offensive rating. I don't think that Doc comes in and all of a sudden like supercharges an already supercharged offense, right? They're 21st in defensive rating. Is Doc like the defensive guru that's going to fix this team and get them into like the mid tiers, something like that? I mean, I've seen Doc coach in LA up close and personal with those Lob City Clippers and then have the Sixers, right? And what I've learned about watching Doc teams is he's pretty set in his ways. He has his rotations that he likes. He doesn't really like staggering certain guys that have their roles. He's kind of like a Tibbs, and he won't run his guys into the ground for 40 straight minutes, but he definitely has his set pieces that go like, certain parts of the game, like in the second quarter, third quarter, whatever, where guys will rotate in and out like as prescribed. He's not a flexible guy. So this looks like a situation where, despite the fact that they're second in the Eastern Conference, clearly something is going on behind the scenes that requires a remedy. And that to me would say, oh, we need somebody to come in and like figure out what's right for this team rather than being like, this is the way I do it. This is the way I've always done it. This is the way we're going to continue to do it.
And honestly, John, I mean, I'm not so much concerned about the regular season. This Milwaukee Bucks team is going to be top 3, top 5. I'm sticking with top 3. This team will figure out a way to win in spite of Doc Rivers. I don't feel like they're going to completely go ahead and offensively. I don't think they're going to tank. I don't think you're going to see a drastic fall off from offense. They're going to be able to score points. You have Damian Lillard. You have Giannis. They're going to make that work. But what we're talking about is the postseason. We're talking about banners and championships, parades and rings. And it has been shown time and time again that if that is what your goal is of your organization, which this is the NBA, it's the goal of every organization, whether it's realistic or not, that is always the end goal. It has been shown time and time again. You go back to your 76ers, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, you go to the Lob City Clippers, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin. He is not, and by he, Doc Rivers is not the coach that is going to take you there. This is a coach we have seen blow multiple 3-1 leads. I don't understand that if this is the goal and you're in panic mode, we got to win. We got to win now. We have Dame. We have Giannis. We got to do it. We got to keep him happy. How is that your decision? He's shown you he can't take you there. It's not a mistake. It's happened time and time again. This is who Doc Rivers is. He's a good regular season coach, but when it gets down to the nitty gritty, he's not taking you to the promised land. And I don't give him this immense amount of credit for what he did in Boston. I could have coached that team and won them a championship. They were that freaking good. I take that out of the equation. He hasn't been able to do it since. He's not that guy.
I've always thought of Doc as, and this is something that I've said forever. I think that there are probably like 5 coaches in the league where you go, they're better than everybody, right? You've got Kerr and Spo and Pop and throw in a couple others, and I
would throw Nurse on that list. I wouldn't put
Nurse,
but I hear you.
and you go, they're better than everybody. I'll take them over everybody. And then there's 5 guys at the back of the league where you're like, man, I don't want them at all. I guess Adrian Griffin's in that category now.
Oh,
And then in the middle, there's just guys. And forever, Doc has just kind of been a guy.
I think you're being nice to Doc. I think he's a serial underachiever in the postseason who has constantly thrown people under the bus and is not viewed as authentic in a lot of his locker rooms. I do want to circle back to your defensive question though, because there was, I don't know if you guys saw this, a post-game press conference that I think does show that Giannis was out on his head coach, where Giannis basically said, are we going to ever have a defensive plan? Are we ever going to make any defensive decisions? It was pretty on the nose and directed at Adrian Griffin. And I think that for Doc Rivers, if it was as bad tactically as some people think it was in Milwaukee, in terms of under Adrian Griffin and what he was doing, Doc Rivers just has to be okay for the defense to improve. I think there's going to be, to your point, Ash, I think there's going to be the illusion, this is what he does, of excellence from Doc Rivers and the Bucks, this perspective of improvement, because it might be that Adrian Griffin was just over his skis in this job. And then when we get to the playoffs and Doc Rivers gets up 3-1 with this Bucks team against anybody, it's called the Doc lock in gambling. Then you put all the money on the other team. Like I think you're right, Ashley. It's going to be fine in the regular season. I think they're going to look really good. It's disaster, I think, that is lurking in the playoffs. But we are really the Doc Rivers fan club here, aren't we? We should send it to his publicist.
Listen, I have no beef with Doc Rivers.
My beef is he's not very good. Is that a beef?
It's just that I'm going to call a spade. And the spade is he's a great regular season coach. He's mediocre or less than in the playoffs. And how he continues to fall forward honestly should be studied, because it's honestly incredible. Because if this was any other coach, he would be like in the announcer booth by now, which Doc Rivers was. I don't understand why he's back.
I can answer your question how he falls forward. He gets jobs as advisors, despite what the Bucks are claiming to me.
He's a dirty macker.
He gets a job as an advisor to a young coach who's vulnerable, and then is like, here's my advice. See you, buddy.
The NBA has installed the Colangelos behind Sam Hinkie, and now all of a sudden the Colangelos are running the organization. I guess if you can get the gigs, get the gigs. The Bucks are at the Cavs. No, they host the Cavs tonight with Joe Prunty as the interim head coach before Doc Rivers takes over. By the way, second time Joe Prunty has been the Bucks interim head coach. He did this when Jason Kidd got the boot.
By the way, Doc, not shocking, but Doc Rivers won't coach tonight. Official told Doc Rivers they're not going to rush him. They're not going to rush him into Milwaukee. So Prunty gets to officially coach as an interim yet again.
One more time for Joe Prunty. We wish him Godspeed, and make sure to read Bill's piece on Doc Rivers being hired on CBSSports.com. Guys, normally we would have started with the trade that just happened, but we had to get that Adrian Griffin news in. But there was a trade on Tuesday, pretty good one. Terry Rozier to the Heat in exchange for Kyle Lowry and a first-round pick. Actually saves the Heat $15.4 million on their tax bill. I think it makes them better too. I mean, I like Kyle Lowry a lot, but he looks like a prime buyout candidate for me. This is a good move for the Heat, I think.
Yeah, great move. I mean, you're down there, Ash. What's your vibe on this? Because I'm with John. I think
it definitely helps them from an offensive standpoint. I mean, he averaged 23 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds this season so far in around 35 minutes. So he has a high efficiency in terms of scoring, which is what the Miami Heat need, especially, we've spoken about this before. They lost a lot of their outside shooting after last season. You had Gabe Vincent, you had Strus. They all went, different areas in the league. So you've been fiending for, that offensive help. Now, some people may question whether or not defensively this helps them. He may have to make some adjustments to his game because they play a specific type of defense in Miami. Pat Riley, that entire, conditioning program, Eric Spoelstra, defense is their bread and butter. They play that very rugged type of basketball, which is why a lot of the times they kind of sneak up on people in the playoffs, especially if you haven't been paying attention in the regular season. They have the switch that they can flip. But again, this is going to help them just immensely when it comes to offense. And also with Jimmy Butler being so in and out of the lineup during the regular season by design or I don't know, by unfortunate circumstances, wherever you stand on that conversation, this is a great move for them. It really helps them out in that situation.
Yeah. Here's my quick 2 cents. I started my NBA career full-time covering the Miami Heat as a beat columnist, moved to Miami, covered that team, know a lot of people in the organization. They hated me. when I was hard on LeBron. LeBron left, and they love me. That's how those things go. So like, and I'm done doubting them because there's a couple higher ups in that organization who I talk to on a regular basis. And it feels like every year they tell me something. And if you spend your days like I do talking to sources, you roll your eyes half the time, right? Like you just, come on, man. Like Doc Rivers wasn't involved. Okay. And I probably shouldn't even say it on the podcast, but hopefully that guy's not watching. With the Heat, I'm done doubting because they told me last year that they had championship DNA and it didn't matter their seeding and gave me a whole argument like why you should Reiter say this or don't. We don't care, but here's what we think. And it was true. And then they drafted Jaquez, right, out of my neck of the woods here in LA and told me the guy was going to be a stud. And I'm like, okay, man, like every GM thinks that their guy, but walk me through the specific reasons he fit into the Heat culture. He's been an absolute revelation. A revelation. Yeah. And by the way, I need to be writing those things so that I can pretend that I was smarter than I am. It's just reporting. It's not actual intellect, right? But I screwed up. I didn't even write it. I'm like, okay, man, cool. Good stuff. Heat source. And they've been telling me all year. Yeah, I'm an idiot. They've been telling me all year that they are going to repeat what they did last year, that they're, in terms of like be more dangerous than people think, that they're going to make an incredibly deep run.
Oh yeah.
That,
I mean,
that they don't, one second, they don't have to have all their guys play now, and that they were going to go out and they were going to be aggressive and supplement with a move that fit their exact culture. And to what you guys just said, Rozier is exactly what they need. He's great offensively. He is an improvement defensively. Like he fits into that. He's got some spunk and some attitude and some grit. And I like Kyle Lowry too, but not now that he's like an 82-year-old basically. So it is a great move into the guy. And there's a couple in particular, but one in the Heat organization that keeps telling me stuff and I keep not listening. I apologize. You're smarter than I am. I'm done doubting the Miami Heat.
It's a good contract too for them.
Yeah.
Let's go through it. I mean, where do we have the Heat now? Because we've beaten this thing to death about they're not a regular season team. They're a postseason team, but currently they're 6th. They're half game up on the Pacers, who, by the way, Pacers still have not won. They're 0-3 with Siakam.
No Halliburton though, and they played Denver tough.
Well, the first one with Siakam, they had him, but yeah,
right. But
tough start so far. But so I'd probably put them ahead of the Pacers. Do we like them better than the Knicks?
Postseason power rankings? I might put them 3rd. Postseason power rankings. I got Boston. I got the Sixers, and then give me the Heat, man. I mean, it depends on matchups, right? But in a vacuum, postseason power rankings, they're ahead of any Doc Rivers team on earth, including the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm sorry, Ash, for me, they're ahead of the Knicks, and yeah, they're ahead of the Pacers. And I need to see Donovan Mitchell do it in the playoffs. So I like the Heat in the playoffs.
Ashley, you're making a face.
Third is crazy. Like third
it's
is
not
insane.
crazy.
Like let's.
Why is it crazy? They went to the finals.
Third is crazy.
Year.
Listen, so did the Lakers. I mean, Western
No, they
Conference
didn't.
Finals. I mean,
Oh,
Western
yeah,
Conference Finals. They weren't supposed to. Like sometimes teams overachieve. Like let's call it was the Lakers overachieved, the Heat overachieved.
Can we
It's
just call
very
it
rare
achieving?
that an 8th
achieved.
seed makes the run that Miami made. Now, I do think that Rozier obviously makes them, like I said, better offensively. Defensively, he's not great, but he's scrappy and he plays with athleticism, which is more than you got with Kyle Lowry. So it doesn't necessarily break their defense. I don't know if it overly makes their defense better. It kind of is somewhat of the same. But again, Miami plays scrappy. They play this rough, tough, rugged level of basketball.
Who's ahead of them, though? Who's ahead of the Heat?
Boston,
Yeah.
Philly.
I still have the Bucks.
I would say I have the Bucks still ahead of them. I do.
I want to put all the money on a Heat Bucks matchup if Doc Rivers is
I will
coaching
say
the Heat.
I do.
Yeah, all the money.
I would say the Knicks and the Heat are kind of even. I have the Pacers slightly ahead of the Heat, just a little bit. I would say the Cavs, Knicks, and Heat for me are all on the same playing field.
I mean, you
Like,
can make a
all
case
the
for
same
anybody.
tier.
I would put them all on the same tier.
John, you've got the Sixers 1, right, ahead of everybody. But after feel like the Sixers are a lock, right?
I don't like the trolling that you've done with this team. As I said to you, I was very excited, not for Bucks fans, but for Sixers fans, because I think it improves their chances of finally getting out of the second round should they run into the Bucks, because I don't believe in Doc Rivers at all. But beyond that, I'm in the tier system. It's the Celtics and then everybody else in the Eastern Conference. So we'll see where everybody shakes out. Rivals week, gang. Rivals week is apparently a thing that the NBA is doing, which is very funny because the Rivals week started with the Sixers against their arch nemesis, longtime foes, the San Antonio Spurs. But last night is really when Rivals week was supposed to start going. You had the Knicks at the Nets and the Lakers at the Clippers. I want to read you something here from the NBA's website, because I know, Ashley, this got this kind of annoyed you a little bit that they're calling
Mhm.
this a rivals week. Quote, NYC bragging rights are on the line when the Knicks face the Nets as two division rivals, really funny, fighting for playoff position. The Nets are fighting for playoff position. News to me. In Brooklyn, Knicks won that game 108, Nets 103.
Right.
Ashley, why do you not specifically like them billing this as a rivalry?
Because it's not a rivalry. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist. Like the Knicks and the Nets don't have any type of beef. It's almost like having a beef with like your younger brother. Like you play varsity in high school and beefing with his AAU team from middle school. Like it's not the same playing field. On top of that, I mean, let's call it what it is. The fact of the matter is every single time one of these games happen, a Nets player is asked the exact same question by the media. How do you feel about all the Knicks fans in the Barclays Center cheering? And they say the same thing. You know, it feels like an away game. It feels like there's no home court advantage because there is none. The Barclays is not a real place. It's a building that there's basketball
Nice
played
building,
there. There's no
good arena.
It's very nice
It's a
building.
nice arena.
They have a
Yeah.
Carbone there. It's fabulous. But I'm saying there aren't real
There's a
fans in
Carbone
this.
there?
There is a Carbone there.
It's
You
the
didn't
best
come
thing
on,
about the
man. You
Nets,
didn't
and
know
I didn't
that?
even know.
Yes, they have a Carbone there. Fantastic. You can get a meal if you rather do that than watch the game, whatever.
It costs you
But
$500 bucks.
it's not a real beef. It doesn't exist. That's like MSG number 2. Like it's just not actually it's a better version because you can get the tickets for cheaper if you can't afford the ones in the Garden. You can go to the Barclays to see the Knicks. Not a real thing. I need them to stop trying to make it a thing. Like are the Lakers and Clippers even a real beef? Is that a real thing
No, I
too?
mean, I think that's
the other
I
the other
mean-
one I was going to bring up, right? Because you had Lakers and Clippers last
They're-
night. This one was billed. I got to read these because they're just too good. Whoever's the minister of propaganda for the NBA on these things, full marks. Because I guess technically the Nets are battling for playoff position, even though they're a game out of the last spot for the play-in. But it's just too funny. The battle for LA is as intense as ever, with the Lakers and Clippers both holding high hopes of making the playoffs and contending for an NBA championship this season. Clippers won that game. Look, the Clippers are contending for an NBA championship. I'm not so sure about the Lakers, but for sure what Ashley just said about the Knicks and the Nets, that applies here in LA, Bill. The Lakers and Clippers, it's a Lakers town. And then like I said, I know like a handful of Clippers fans.
The Clippers should move to Seattle. They don't belong here. I've lived in both cities. There's no fans here. And Ash, I don't know where the Nets should move. Like who needs Austin?
They
I
should
mean, they
just
go
go
to
back to
Austin?
Jersey. They can go back to Jersey if they want to.
I did see a funny thing on
Like-
Twitter. They're like, at least you made Knicks fans cross a bridge they had to pay for, right? That they
Right.
like just some kind of
The $20 toll.
It's I'll end it here. It is the NBA trying way too hard.
Which makes me laugh because knowing that like the Lakers and the Clippers don't have a real like beef, the fact that they have the wall that they're building at the new Clippers arena where it's like 51 rows of Clippers fans.
Oh,
Like, are
yeah.
there 51 rows worth of Clippers fans
There are
in LA?
51 Clippers fans in LA. Now, maybe a new arena. Now, like full disclosure, I don't have beef with everybody. Just some people. The Clippers and I are not like don't get along super great. In large part because they think that they're the Lakers, and most of us do not. But I do think going to a new arena is not going to work. But at least it gives you the opportunity to kind of get out of the shadow of the Lakers. So maybe in like 25 years they'll be relevant here.
I'm looking forward to that new arena, but I made the same joke on Twitter where I saw 51 rows and I'm like, what are they going to do with the other 50? But it's going to be beautiful. I wish them luck, and the team's good. So we'll see if maybe they'll draw some more.
But did you
more
see
people.
the rules for the rows? Like you can't sit in those rows unless you're an actual Clippers fan. Like if you cheer for the other team, you will be removed. I'm
It's a
like, how
soccer
are you
thing.
going to enforce this?
They better have a robust security system and services in place.
Yeah. That's how it works in the Premier League or in La Liga.
And very soccer.
Where
Yeah,
you
very
like
soccer.
you have to sit in your designated area because otherwise like a brawl will break out. But that's not going to happen at a Clippers game. So I think like Ballmer is kind of setting them up for failure when they're like, nobody wants to fight in this area. But we'll see how it works at the Intuit Dome. I want to go to the Wolves because on the last show, Bill was adamant. Ashley and I were like, they're in first place. They look really good. All right. So as we record this right now, there's a 3-way tie for first place in the Western Conference. The Wolves have now been caught by the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets. The reason why they got caught is on the other night while Joel Embiid was putting up a franchise record 70 points, Karl Anthony Towns went for 62 points on the same evening. However, results not quite as good. He had 62 points in a home loss to the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets are very, very bad. So afterwards, Chris Finch, their head coach, not at all pleased. Here's what he had to say.
It was an absolute disgusting performance of defense and immature basketball all the way through the game. So it really didn't slip away. It had been there from the jump. So this is what happens when you have this type of approach.
An absolute disgusting performance, he called it. Now, for those of you who are listening and didn't actually see the video there, when he's talking about the disgusting performance, they had a graphic right next to it, and it was just all Cat stats from that night. So I thought that was really chef's kiss. Ashley, we'll go to Bill in a second. Was Bill right? Were we wrong? Is this the crack in the Wolves facade that he was signaling?
I wouldn't call it a crack, but I think it does prove much of his point that young teams aren't prime to go all the way to win because their decision making is off. There's no way that you score 62 points in a game, lose the game, and get benched. That's insane. For your head coach to call it immature basketball, basically, if you read between the lines, or if you even ever played basketball or team sport in general, basically that means you were more interested in your stats and the outcome of the game. And that just speaks to the ideology and the maturity of the player and the team. It being that Cat's graphics were on the screen when he was referring to that, one can allude that he was saying, I'm glad you got your 62 points, but we lost and you played like a child. So it's not great. But again, this goes back to the conversation we were having. Can young teams go all the way? And I said, for the most part, I agree with Bill. They can't, but that's only because sometimes they lack the wherewithal, the maturity, and the insight to know it's not about what your stat line looks like. It's about the outcome and how the team plays as a unit. And 9 times out of 10, there's exceptions to the rules, and we've seen it, but 9 times out of 10, young guys are always trying to get theirs and aren't always worried about everybody playing.
That's not
everyone
that young
playing
anymore.
as a unit.
No,
but he has a very low IQ when it comes to the game.
So, John, to answer your question, were you and Ashley wrong? Was I right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead, Bill.
The answer is yes. And look, this is a beautiful bonding opportunity for us as a group as we do the show, because there's going to be more moments than we're all comfortable with, if we're being honest, where I'm going to say what sounds like some crazy stuff, and then like 3 or 4 or 8 weeks later, to be like, oh my gosh, it's true. So I'm glad that we could speed up. Look, here's the thing, and this is the crazy thing to me. There's so many things about this game that is amazing, and I'm a huge Cat doubter. I love Anthony Edwards, and I do think they're building something.
Me too.
But as an actual contender, that was the conversation. It's a no, and that's part. It was evident because they couldn't even handle the pressure of Cat having a near historic game, a big game. That was too much for them to focus. And I think one of the details that matter, that's sort of significant here, on top of how bad the team they were playing, this is a Timberwolves team that is exceptional defensively. That is how they've gotten to or near the top, depending on the day of the Western Conference standings, right? It's scoring points. It's been a problem. It's been a little disconcerting. They should have the offensive firepower, but whatever. Effort, defense, focus. You got 62 from Cat, and you couldn't win because your defensive effort just completely evaporated, as that clip showed, because you couldn't handle the sort of weird magnitude of your guy playing well. That does not bode well for when you get to the playoffs and you're playing the Nuggets or the Clippers or a team like the Lakers or the Warriors, if the Warriors actually get in and the Lakers get in, who have some experience. So I'm high on the Timberwolves on a 2-3 year timeline. But yeah, I do think this underscores that this is probably not the year.
Don't let Cat off the hook, though. How did he play?
No, he's a borderline bum too.
Outside of getting your 62, and that's why I said, and John made a face, I said that he doesn't have a high IQ. When I say that, I mean there are multiple parts of games throughout his career, and especially games that have come down to the wire where he makes bonehead decisions. He doesn't have that same tenacity when it comes to how he plays down the stretch. And he also doesn't have that same wherewithal when it comes to his IQ and what he should and should not do. And that's why I've always been on the line with Cat. I think the talent is there, obviously, and you see it. You can't just score 62 points in the game if you're not talented. But after the talent, I don't know if it's there where he can take his game to the next level and no longer remain on that line, because I think this is off sometimes. And I don't understand what it's going to take for that to switch, or if it can even possibly ever switch. I've never personally seen it.
So, and John, maybe you can remind me real quick, sort of agree / general pushback. I've talked to Cat. He's a bright guy, and he's
No,
the
no, no,
first
it's
one. And this is
extremely smart. No, I'm not
he's
saying,
the
I'm not,
first.
yeah.
He's also the first one who will tell you he's a really bright guy. Like he's not short of confidence, but I do think it's true. But like I do think that there's you're right, that there's something that's off in key games. And you can point to a bunch of examples where this isn't true, but he did miss the shot at the end where he could have helped his team win his 62 and would have been 65-point game. And I can't remember John and Ash, but there was a play-in game a couple years ago, or maybe maybe it was the last game of the regular season to get to the play-in, where Cat basically vanished from the entire game and went James Harden in that Houston game where he missed a bunch of threes in a row. So I'm a big part of my doubt is I don't trust Cat to be at his talent level when you get to the playoffs. I'm with you. There's a mentality of toughness or winning or whatever that I think he lacks, John.
I'm reluctant to besmirch the good name of a fellow Eagles fan. He's a big Eagles fan. But he did get, and we see here at the bottom, Cat scores 62 and gets benched. They went offense, defense at the end of the game, so they did take him out. So when we're talking about, Ashley saying like him not doing certain things in certain situations, I mean, they took him off the court in a game where he had 62 points on a team that is number 1 in defensive rating in the NBA because they didn't trust him down the stretch against the Hornets defensively. But
That's my point.
Then they sub him back in at the end of the game and let him take that last shot. And he ended it on an air ball. And God,
it was brutal.
That was a full Cat experience. Thank you so much for that. I could not stop. That night was amazing. First, Embiid had 70 in a win, and then Cat gave us an all-time Cat performance. So
right.
Godspeed to Cat and the Wolves. They're back at it tonight against the Wizards in Washington. That's stiff competition for them, apparently. They're basically just like the Hornets. So we'll see if the Wolves can get past the Wizards.
I obviously want to clarify because I know how people love to wasn't speaking about his IQ when it comes to everyday life. I'm talking about what happens on the realms of a court. I don't know what his IQ is. He seems very smart, very well-spoken. It has nothing to do with that. I'm talking when it comes to what he does in the four walls of the arena. A lot of question marks with his decision-making. So
for all the aggregators out there,
don't try to quote me, Twitter. Okay.
For all the aggregators out there, you can find
you
Ashley's
dead husk
Twitter
of a
handle.
website, The Big Lead. Yeah.
Ashley's Twitter handle is right below her name there it is. You guys can get
there
out of there.
Right?
All right. Here's a conversation that we've been excited to have. I know, Ashley, you were really big on this. So Kevin Durant has been in the news this week. He, the GOAT conversation in the NBA can go a lot of different ways. I had never considered adding Kevin Durant to it. You know who had? Kevin Durant.
No one.
So he told the Arizona Republic, why shouldn't I be in that conversation? That's the question you should ask. Why not? Why? What haven't I done? And then he answered his own question by saying the reason that he's not in the GOAT conversation for other people is because he went to the Warriors. Don't forget, the Warriors eliminated OKC when he was with the Thunder back in the 2016 Western Conference Finals. And instead of trying to beat them the next season, he jumped ship and went to the Warriors and won 2 championships with them and 2 Finals MVPs. Let's start here. Should he be in the GOAT conversation?
No. It's ludicrous.
That's succinct. I agree, but actually, you're not so sure.
No, because I agree that no, should he be in but I don't think most players are in the GOAT conversation. I don't think that's a knock. Right. You know what I mean? I don't think that that's saying that you're not an exceptional player, you're not one of the best. KD, whether you like him, dislike him, he's one of the best this sport has ever seen. I don't think anybody will argue that. Some will say he's the greatest scorer we've ever seen. I mean, the list goes on things and accolades you can give him. Most players aren't in the GOAT conversation. That's not a knock. I don't feel like that takes away from anything, but I do agree that I feel like, and I've always felt like, he's been held to a different standard in the conversation of greatness and where he falls in that conversation because of the whole Warriors OKC saga. And it's odd because, and yes, I know people will say, well, they had the best record in the NBA and he jumped ship. It's not like he jumped ship from OKC a year in. He was there for 9 years. And it was 9 years of winning, 9 years of losing, 9 years of getting close, almost, but not close enough. So it's not like he just left. He went through the growing pains of that organization for as long as he wanted to until it became enough for him. And also, we have seen since Kevin Durant and before Kevin Durant, players going to teams to better their situation of winning. And I don't think it's fair to hold him to a different standard for doing the same thing that players have done since. On top of that, both championships that they won with him there, he was the finals MVP.
Yeah.
It's not
Shouldn't
like
have been in the
it's
second one.
It's not
Shouldn't have
like
been.
Should have been the
okay,
second.
well, whatever
Should've been.
he was. So it's
Yeah.
not like he went there.
Okay.
Not like he
I
went
mean-
there and just sat on the bench and rode his way to a
Look,
championship.
Ash,
He contributed. Come on.
No one's doubting he's a great player. No one's doubting
Yeah,
he's outstanding.
amazing.
He's the one that brought. Look, this is like if John says he's handsome. Yeah, man, you are. If John says, "Why am I not
John
the
would
sexiest?"
never say that.
If John says, "Why am I not on the sexiest man alive list?" Like, bro, let's have a conversation about standards. That
I might
is-
ask.
No, you might. I mean, fairness.
I might ask.
Here's the thing. Who are you bumping? Who is he bumping off the list? For me, it's LeBron, Jordan, Kareem. Probably in that order. Those are the conversations. KD's not even in the top. I'm not sure he's in the top 10. He's certainly not in the top 5. I mean, and I thought Draymond Green made a great point about this on his podcast. It's almost as good as this podcast at times, Dre, where he said, look, like, you want to go out and you win. You do what Steph just did with Boston, where Steph against Boston, where Steph took the Warriors to a championship.
Yep.
When it looks like now, in retrospect, that Warriors team was already past its expiration date, and Steph just put that team on his back and carried him to a title. That is reaffirming of everything we thought we knew, and I thought I knew, which was Steph was the better, great, because KD's great, of that tandem in Golden State. If KD wants to go win 2 or 3 championships and carry Phoenix or somebody else, awesome. This dude hasn't made, if I'm not wrong, a conference finals without the Warriors since he left Oklahoma City, and he has chosen where he's gone. Good for you. Do it. Wear the right shoe size. Okay, whatever. I don't care. So it's – look, man, I think KD's amazing. Amazing.
He can go where he wants. He can go where he wants. I say go, have a good time, start your super team that doesn't work out in Brooklyn, start your super team that may or may not work out in Phoenix. They've won 6 in a row. See if they can get 7 tonight. That's not really the conversation. The conversation, when you say you need to be in the GOAT conversation, all right, now all of a sudden the bar really gets raised, right? And yeah, he won 2 finals MVPs and 2 championships. He's not even the best Warrior from the Warriors dynasty era. 100%. Steph Curry won a championship before him. Steph Curry won a championship after him. He didn't need KD. KD needed him. That's where I'm like,
I just feel like it's a little bit moving the goalpost because yes, LeBron left in free agency when he went to Miami, but that team, for all intents and purposes, everyone thought that team was going to go ahead and win a championship. You team up with Chris Bosh and D Wade, at the time, 2 of the best players in the league for what they respectfully do, and you lose. They lost to what was it, Dallas the first year?
They lost to Dallas, they won 2, and then they lost.
And then you won 2. So
Mm-hmm.
with KD, you spend 9 years in OKC. It doesn't work. You go to the Warriors team. You do contribute. You win the finals MVP twice. You go to Brooklyn. Brooklyn, for all intents and purposes, as much as it pains me to say, we don't know if that team could have won. Injury and other situations. Injury in other situations robbed us of knowing what that true outcome could have been. That I
like that you yada Kyrie is another situation.
Listen, as much as it pains me to say, I think if that team were healthy and there weren't other situations outside of the game, I believe that team could have made the finals. I think that they were that good, the 3 of them together, but we will never know. So
if wishes were fishes, what is that? We'd all be kings.
But what I'm saying is KD's been part of situations with unfortunate circumstances, but discrediting his winnings in the Warriors and that being a stain is, I feel like it's not fair. I'm not saying you are, but people.
No, I know, but he thinks he's discredited if he's not called the best of all time, bro.
Which is wild.
It's wild. Like, I like Durant, and it's been a long time, but when he was in Oklahoma City, I used to fly to OKC a lot and do NBA reporting. He was such and I'm sure he still is, a sweet, nice, then young man. Now he's like a grown man. I like Kevin Durant. I root for Kevin Durant. I hurt when he accidentally mixes up his burner accounts and tweets at people with eggs next to their Twitter handles about how mad he is. I do. So, like, I just don't need him out here begging to be in this conversation. Like, I am rooting for Kevin Durant as much as anybody. He's a super likable guy and an amazing player, but it's a little just too on the nose.
Do you both think in all fairness, let's take the GOAT conversation out of it. Do you
Right.
think that when we talk about some of the greatest players the game has ever seen, don't you feel like the stain that people have attributed to the Golden State Warriors saga with KD leaving after, losing to them, don't you feel like that stain is constantly something that is used to knock him out of the greatest conversation?
If we're talking so it used to be top 10. I think it should be top 20 now because there's so many more guys from Jordan's era. Only with dumb people that we shouldn't take seriously. Durant.
There's a lot of dumb people.
But not that don't. Yeah, but I mean, is he a top 20 player? Which I don't mean as a put down. I mean as a compliment, right? I think like, or you want to go 12 to 15. I think it's 20. Whatever the sort of new tier is of like you're on a very rare pedestal. He's there. I'm jumping with the camera. He's there. But GOAT. I mean, he brought it up.
No, I'm not disagreeing with the GOAT. I'm in agreement with both of you. But I feel like it's not necessarily about the GOAT itself. I do feel like KD a lot of the times is disrespected when we talk about the greatest players that ever were because of this Golden State Warriors. He's almost discredited because of this Golden State Warriors situation. I feel like it's unfair because he's not the only person who's ever done this.
No, I mean, it feels like a little bit of a straw man argument to me because, like, who's discrediting him? He's an amazing player. The only thing that anybody's taken umbrage with is the GOAT conference. If you're saying, like, hey, is Kevin Durant really good and a Hall of Famer? He's amazing. Are you kidding me? I love watching that guy. I don't blame him for going to look, can't beat him, join him, go win your chips, get a couple of rings, couple of finals MVPs. Absolutely. But if you, Kevin Durant, bring up why you, Kevin Durant, are not in the GOAT conversation, well, then I got to go, hold on a second. What have you been smoking? And I will take some. Look, it is a two-man conversation for GOAT, and that's it. And I don't care if you pick Jordan or LeBron, or LeBron, up to you, but that's the conversation.
Kareem, I'm going to add this. This is KD's cry for help. Can I do a soccer comparison? Have you seen Ronaldo? Ronaldo being all like, I'm so hurt that Messi's amazing, I'm going to lash out. This is a more low-key cry for help from Kevin Durant, who has realized he needed Steph Curry and Steph Curry didn't need him. And hey, we've all been there, big guy. I get it. Yeah, man. He's out there begging reporters to like ask the question why he's not the greatest of all time because you're not. You're not even Steph.
But that's very good.
I don't think he said, why am I not the greatest? I think he's simply wondering why is he not in the conversation?
But that's like me wondering why I'm not in the conversation for sexiest man alive because that's not even in the realm of
Can I cite the group chat real quick?
Yeah,
I said
group chats. Okay.
I said when we were having this conversation, and I said, "Hey, we should throw Kobe's stats in there because I feel like when we talk about the GOAT, I feel like Kobe's name is always in the mix. LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, like who's the GOAT? Who's above who? Depending on who you ask, you'll get different rankings, a hierarchy. You said KD is better than Kobe Bryant right now.
I did not say that. That was our producer.
Who said it? Okay, Aaron said it. Sorry.
Well, I did say this. Kobe's not a top 5 player of all time. And Kobe's amazing. Kobe's not even a top 5 player of all time.
Yeah.
Who are you going to kick off the list?
I love Kobe. When you brought up Kobe,
and
you said that he's always in the conversation, I'm like, in the conversation of people in the Lower Merion area, because I'm not sure outside of like Kobe's friends and family who would have Kobe as the GOAT. Like I've followed Kobe since we were literally both of us children. We both went to neighboring high schools. He's a year younger than me. I watched him and I covered him in high school. I covered him when he got to the league. I was there in Philly when he said goodbye on his farewell tour. I was there in Philly when LeBron passed him for points. I was on the plane with a bunch of media people the morning that he passed, which remains incredibly sad. He, like Kevin Durant, has had an amazing career. It's still a two-man conversation. He's not in it.
Who's higher? KD? Who finishes their career higher? KD or Kobe on the all-time rankings list?
For me, Kobe. You have to go ahead and attribute not just individual stats. We're talking rings.
Me too for now.
We're talking chips. We're talking rings. I mean,
it's debatable.
In Ashley's defense, there are a lot of current NBA players who carbon dating them, they're younger. So they watched Kobe growing up, and a lot of them have Kobe number one because he was their Jordan. But there is such a thing as history.
They're not all younger because Shaq says he's in the GOAT conversation.
Well,
Shaq
Shaq played with
with
him
the
and has
man.
a soft spot for him for sure.
I mean,
but
the
I think,
list
like,
goes
Shaq,
on. I believe
Shaq
Jamal
thinks he's
Crawford
the
said the
GOAT
same
conversation.
thing.
I mean, look, Kobe's
Is
not.
Shaq not in the GOAT conversation?
No,
No.
I've got him. I've got him 4 on my list, and I think that's pretty high. And I would add Kareem to the GOAT conversation. Look, here's what you need to know. If anyone says that Kobe's the best player of all time, that person is wrong in ranking the best players of all time. It's a really easy litmus test. I mean,
I dare you to
I-
go stand outside of the crypto arena and say that.
I've done it on LA radio. So don't worry. I'm not going to lie to people. I'm not going to pander to people. And I understand that for people in LA, it's out of love and respect. This is the thing about these conversations too. And this is the thing with KD. Not everybody gets to be the best of all time. And these all-time greats who willed themselves to this place through talent and hard work and just wanting it have to believe they're better than everybody to get there. I understand that. But the hard truth is that if you want to tell everybody that they're the best of all time, you don't believe anything. There's one guy who can be the best of all time. Maybe you can throw 3 names into the mix. But sorry, Kevin Durant. I can remember being in a green room once with Donovan McNabb and him telling me why Kurt Warner was never a Hall of Famer. I'd never met him. We were going to be colleagues. And I turned to the guy and go, well, then you're certainly not a Hall of Famer, which didn't go over well, but was still true. Not everybody gets to be what they want to be. Not everybody can be number one.
To Ashley's idea of you standing outside of crypto, Bill, you mumbled under your breath that Kareem should be in the conversation, which makes me wonder, is Kobe even the greatest Laker of all time?
No, he's not the greatest Laker of all time. I mean, Kareem, look, it's harder for me because I wasn't watching like I am now, but Kareem was pretty good. I mean,
Ashley's shaking her head.
The disrespect for Kobe Bryant is insane.
It's not disrespect.
He's disrespecting him. He's so good.
I think Kobe's amazing.
The disrespect is crazy. And listen, I always differentiate like this. For me, Michael Jordan's the GOAT, and I didn't even grow up watching him play. I was too young. But history is what history is. I think that Jordan will forever be, until someone surpasses him, the GOAT. But when we talk about my personal GOAT, for me, it's Kobe. I watched his career my entire life.
No. Words.
The GOAT is Jordan. But if you're talking about who my personal GOAT is, it's Kobe, because I was too young to really experience the greatness of Michael Jordan.
Favorite.
For me, it's Kobe.
Favorite.
My GOAT
different.
versus the GOAT.
Oh, you're pandering those Lakers fans.
I like how you're dividing the line there.
Listen,
and also I really enjoy the subtle humble brag that you were too young for Jordan. Thank you for that. It makes me feel not at all old. All right, let's move on. We're going to wrap up today's show with a new segment that we have called Fast Break. And we're going to try to run through these topics quickly. And the first topic here, we saw this. I sent it to you guys in our group chat. Victor Wembanyama says, hey, do not call or text him after 9:30. He likes to read for an hour and then go to bed. And hello, it's me. I am Victor Wembanyama.
Absolutely. Love this, Wemby. I am the fan. I'm the girl. I'm the person of do not disturb on my phone. Sometimes I forget to turn it off in the morning. I love this. I think we should all value each other's personal time when we're not working. Why do you need to call Wemby after 9:30? The game's over. He's home. We won. We lost. Leave me alone. I'll see you in the morning. I'm here for it, Wemby. I'm not mad at it at all. I wonder what he's reading.
What a not so subtle baller French move to tell Pop, you don't tell me when we talk, I tell you when we talk. And by the way, he likes fantasy Sword Catcher. It's for young people, Wemby, but it's really good. It's kind of moving. That's your next book.
I like that the 9:30 is his cutoff time. I have a 9 o'clock hit for CBS HQ tonight. 9:30, I'm done. All right.
9:30. All right.
Portland, the Blazers, after last night, they lost to OKC by 1 point on Tuesday night. They're filing a protest with the NBA league office. What happened was Chauncey Billups was trying to call a timeout with 15.6 seconds left. He didn't get it, and the Blazers immediately got called for a double dribble. They lost. Chauncey lost his mind, got 2 techs ejected, tossed. But isn't this the most disingenuous protest ever? They're tanking. They want to lose that game.
Yeah, it just feels like you got your priorities out of whack here, Portland. Take the L. It's going to help you in the long run. Not really sure what you're fighting for. Yeah. This just seems like this is more of an ego thing. It's not even about the logistics. It's not even about what actually makes sense. Their ego is hurt. You know what I mean? So I get it, but I also don't. You got to think bigger picture, and this is not it. So just take the L, Portland. You've been doing it all season anyway. So
emotional, hilarious, unjust perspective on how tanking works. Joe Cronin's the GM. He wants to tank, but players and coaches don't tank. They try. And so Chauncey blowing the hell up. By the way, What, did he not get the memo? He's not allowed to call timeouts, apparently. What a ridiculous call that was. It does show that, like, these guys give a you-know-what, even when the GM's sitting up in the office like, oh, yeah, we're going to lose another one. Crazy.
It was
You think
quite
so
amusing.
you think it's part of an act? Is it an act?
No,
Like,
no. I think
pretend you're really mad about this.
No, I think
so we
the
seem
GM,
like we're not tanking,
the
but we
opposite.
actually are tanking.
No, Cronin, the GM, is super happy. I think Chauncey's like, I'm so tired of losing. I can't even call a damn timeout. This is stupid. Then he lost his mind. He can't go yell at his GM, so he yells at the official.
Very, very amusing. Also amusing, Udonis Haslem had his jersey raised to the rafters for the Heat. You know who didn't think that was a good idea? Evidently, Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, because it's 2008, and we're talking about those three. I don't know. Ashley, this one you flagged.
I don't want to see old heads fighting about this anymore. I mean, Paul Pierce goes on Instagram and says, I don't think he deserved the jersey retirement. This just seems like this is just something that they did. UD goes on his podcast and it says if he sees KG and Paul Pierce in a grocery store, he's fighting them. I don't want to be in Publix, which is a popular grocery chain down here in Miami, South Florida area. Nice. I don't want to be at Publix getting my chicken tender sub and seeing two old head basketball players fighting in aisle 9. It's not. Listen, there's enough love to go. There's enough love to go around. You both are legends in your own right. You both have rings. You both have retired jerseys. Why can't you guys just let bygones be bygones? You're too old for this. This reminds me of like when I go back to like Howard for homecoming. My dad is a Bison. Shout out to the Bisons. And you see like the old head Kappas fighting the old head Alphas. It is 2024. It is not 1970 anymore. Move past this. Let it go.
I'm in agreement with you that they should let it go, but a lot of ageism from Ashley Nicole Moss today. A lot of she's young and everybody else is old. Just throwing that out there.
I am old here. I covered UD. I mean, the guy, by the way, he's minus 500 in a fight against any of those guys. Like, UD's a great guy. He's also a real tough guy, not a fake tough guy. Like some of the people like do not pick a fight in Publix or anywhere else on earth with Udonis Haslem. Look, it's none of anybody's business, especially a Boston Celtic, who the Miami Heat, who have their own successful culture, choose to honor in whatever way. So whatever the beef between these guys, I mean, I know that UD's stats, if you look him up on Basketball Reference, aren't amazing, but this guy was a legitimate coach and leader and force and catalyst on that team, an extension of the Heat way from the moment he was there. I mean, and I say this with respect to Boston Celtics players who were legends, but shut your mouth and when it comes to the Miami Heat's business, like let them do their own thing.
Not only that, but in Miami, they'll call it Wade County. But if you talk about the mayor of Wade County, it's Udonis Haslem. He's born and raised down here.
Yep.
He has street cred. He has media cred. He has legend cred. And if you talk to any rookie who has come in and out of that organization, UD has been instrumental in making them the player that they've become.
He's good people.
Bam Adebayo will continually uplift UD and says if it wasn't for him and Wade as well, but if it really wasn't for UD, I would not be the player that I was. Those guys respect him. They listen to him. And there is a reason why they want him there in any capacity, whether he has the jersey on or off. So Paul Pierce, green may be your color of your jersey, but it doesn't look good on you anymore. Stop being a hater.
And stop being old. Right, Ash? I mean, that's the final word.
John,
right there.
Young people like Ash and I just have to just live in our skin, okay? So just deal with it.
You two are going to go off and do young people thing. I'm going to go to bed at 9:30 with just like Victor Wembanyama. That is it for this Wednesday edition of the show. We'll be back on Friday for Ashley Nicole Moss and Bill Reiter. Everybody, I'm John Gonzalez. Thank you so much for watching.